Warning. Incoming game over. Warning. Incoming game over.
Hello and welcome. Breathe, Ottawa Senators fans. Breathe. We are live here. It is 1:27 a.m. Eastern Time, and now Thursday, November 28th. This edition of Game Over Ottawa. My name is Nick Robinson. I'm joined tonight by my fellow Game Over host, Damian Smith, and the Ottawa Senators somehow come away with a victory at the SAP Center in the first game of their California road swing over the San Jose Sharks. Damian, before we begin to break this game down, and quite frankly, what the hell we just watched, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'll take the win. We'll touch on it a little later. But I'll take the 2 points. The regulation win, I get it. It's against San Jose, but you got to win the games that are in front of you. They're not always going to be pretty. I will take the 2-game win streak. I really have, I have some complaints, but as long as we get the 2 points, man, I am happy.
Yeah, and we will touch on all that. Before we get into things, I just want to remind you all to check out the flagship show of the Game Over Hockey Network on the Game Over Network channel. It's Hyperdrive Hockey, where you can find all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Stephanie, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. It's all linked in the description. Damien, like I said, this was a case of what the hell did we watch. Let's go through the game from puck drop. I'm gonna say it a few times in this, but the Senators came out flat. The Sharks came out strong, pushed the pace a bit early. Senators just looked maybe a little tired right from the get-go. San Jose really pushed the shot total, but Adam Gaudette scored his 10th of the year 4.5 minutes into the game off a great feed from Tim Stützle on sort of a low 2-on-1. Gaudette, right place, right time, and making the most of his new elevated role, flying shotgun with the two best Senators forwards in Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. And then later on in the period, the Senators got a power play, and Josh Norris continued his strong offensive play as of late and scored his 9th of the year off a beauty of a pass from Drake Batherson. Damien, the Senators were outshot 12-4 in the first period, but came out with a 2-0 lead. What were your impressions of the Senators early in the start overall?
Yeah, they weren't. Okay, here's what I'll say. San Jose played fantastic tonight. They really maximized everything they had at the roster. I know their defense is the worst in the league on paper. But Jake Wallman and even CC looked like they had great nights. Analytically, they probably got to be those stat cards that we see. They got to be all the way to the right for analytics. And their young players, oh my goodness, they look so good. It's just a matter of fact of winning, right? Because we've had the same thing with Ottawa in the past, where we've had the Stützles, Tkachuks. They've been so exciting to watch, but they end up losing anyway. But you look at Eklund, Smith, and Celebrini. Oh my goodness, they are going to look very good down the road. But yeah, the Sens, I guess their best period was the first one. And I'm just going to look at the box score here. They got 4 shots, and they got 2 goals, right? So you know what, man? These games are going to happen. Maybe I'm being overly positive, but the Sens there's been so many games this year where they have just outright dominated the opponent and they just lost straight. It could have been a 1-goal game, then they didn't get a single point out of it, right? So this game's going to happen once in a while, right? They're going to come out flat. They played on Monday in Ottawa, right? And yeah. I'm not trying to make too many excuses because they got 11 shots tonight, but you go all the way to San Jose, all the way east to west. I was expecting them to be flat, and they were. But thank you, Linus Ullmark, because he made a couple of great saves at the start, and he kept that thing rolling. And he was, at the end of the day, he was the X factor for the Sens.
Yeah, you're certainly right. And, touching on that first period, Linus Olmark looked strong from the get go. And I think that was key. And we've seen it all year long from the Senators. When they do get that first goal, there is just a bit more confidence in the way that they defend. For all of what we're going to touch on here with how the Senators played tonight, I'll give them a lot of credit because I think they did a good job of getting Linus Olmark to see a lot of the pucks that San Jose fired on net. And I think that was key. We'll head now into the second period of play, and a bit more back and forth. I think this is when the Sharks really started to push the north-south part of the game, and Mario Ferraro scored his first of the year off a really nice passing play, but sort of just a bit of a bad change from the Senators really gave them a lot of space, and the Sharks, again, who were sort of really strong in pushing the play and pushing the Senators back all night, capitalized on that. But the Senators did get it back. Tyler Kleven, who I will touch on in the second portion of this episode, scored his first NHL goal off a great feed from Claude Giroux. Big wind-up slap shot, blasted it through the five-hole of Mackenzie Blackwood. And the Senators again, outshot 12-6 in the second period, but they came out of it up 3-1. Again, Damian, we were sort of touching on it. The Sharks really started to push the pace of the play in this period, but the Senators did respond pretty well, getting that 3-1 goal back. But, I mean, are you happy with the way that the Sens sort of defended in this game overall? Or maybe was there a bit too much time afforded to some of San Jose's good players? Because I think in the second period is when the line of Celebrini and Eklund really started to take over the game and really started to push the play and sort of gave us what we saw in the third period.
Yeah, like San Jose was on one tonight. That team was determined, very determined to tie the game up. I think the Sens obviously did not have a great night defensively. However, there were some great chances, but there wasn't too many, at least from the eye test. From watching this game, of course, every NHL team's going to give up chances, but it didn't seem like it was overwhelming. And I think the Sens, they bent for sure, but they did not break whatsoever. And that's what you need. These are the games. I know it's against San Jose, the worst team in the league, basically, but you got to learn how to win those tougher games. And you look at, defense wasn't so great tonight. The offense, I thought they carried a decent amount of the play at certain points. I'm surprised they only got 11 shots on net, to be honest. But this is one of those games, especially on the road, right? You need your goalie to step up so much and make the saves at the right time. And when you're on the road after just 24 hours of being accustomed to the Western time zone, that's got to be not super hard on the body, but it's got to throw the players off a lot. And you saw that they didn't really have the legs tonight for the most part. So yeah, they didn't play their best defensively, but I've seen worse because they didn't give up too many gaffes. I would say two of San Jose's goals tonight were really good goals. And you go back to the first one, the Wallman one, that great pass from Smith. And then we'll touch on the second one here, Celebrini. I think it was just a backdoor play tap in, right? Yes, you could nitpick there, be like, why did you pick up that man or whatever? But it was a great bang bang play from San Jose. I can't complain too much.
Well, let's touch on it then. If any Senators fan here watching thought the first 40 minutes it couldn't get much worse, it got very worse very quickly for the Senators. Macklin Celebrini scoring his 7th of the year, 4:48 into the third. Again, the line with him and Eklund really took over this game for stretches, really showing their speed and their skill. Really were all over the Senators. I wasn't a fan personally of the Sanderson-Hamonic matchup against them because, sometimes, as is the case with Hamonic a lot, it's pretty much Jake Sanderson all out there on his own, it feels like. And this goal was definitely a case of it. Again, you sort of alluded to it. It was a good backdoor bang-bang touch pass play by Eklund to Celebrini, who tapped it into an open net. Olmark had no chance. But if you look back on it, I felt at the time, and I still feel, that Hamonic should have done a better job of getting underneath Celebrini's stick. It sort of looks like he went to play the body on the net front, and Salabrini was able to just tap it into an empty goal. The Sharks got a power play just over the halfway point of the period. Shane Pinto with a tripping penalty. He's not been on a hot stretch as of late. This isn't going to help. And the Sharks scored a good goal, like you said, as Will Smith drove past the Senators' defense, cut in with a high shot that went off the crossbar down and then just sort of ricocheted in. Again, not one you're going to blame Linus Ullmark for, not one he had a huge chance of stopping. At this point in the period, it was now tied 3-3, and I think, Damien, you probably, like myself, were in a bit of a panic, thinking, here we go again with this Senators team, and have they not learned a lesson here again about sitting back and playing? Well, they figured it out quick, because their one shot of the period came shortly thereafter. Tim Stützle finding Adam Gaudette for his second of the game, his 11th of the year. Beauty one-handed tip from Gaudette into the top corner. Mackenzie Blackwood, really no chance, and that was with just over 4 minutes left in the period. The Senators' big players coming up with big plays. They weren't really at it for much of the night tonight, but that was more than enough. And I don't recall San Jose with any huge chances to tie it late. The Senators sort of did a good job keeping them to the outside. And despite being outshot 39-11, the Senators come away 4-3 victors, despite blowing a 2-goal lead in the third period. The Senators do it. Damien, we sort of touched on the main points here. This isn't going to be a game that they highlight throughout the rest of the year and really try to replicate in any way. But good to get a win in San Jose for the first time in 7 years. It's a building they've really struggled to win in, and Damien, would you say it's a good way to start this road trip overall, despite the fact that they didn't play well? Just important to start it with a win, get their second win in a row here, and give them something to build off of going into LA on Saturday.
Yeah, okay, I could think a lot of people were sort of expecting maybe like a 4-1 win on paper for the Sens tonight, but it's a weird thing to say right after the game, but I honestly, for this group, I would have rather this team win 4-3 with a game-winning goal like later in the game than win 7-0, because there's been too many times over this year where this team has not got the goal at the right time, and there's been games where they just like simply outplayed their opponent, like Toronto, St. Louis, Seattle, and stuff like that. So this is like, it's a 4-3 win against the San Jose Sharks, but it actually is a very big win for this team, because now you kind of just break down the barrier of this team, not scoring in the clutch moments. And now I think they have a little bit more belief in themselves. And maybe that's a little bit sad to say about professional athletes, because you know what? Like, there's been times this year where this team has been pretty damn fragile. And that narrative has really gone around. And it's up to them to break that narrative. And damn, like Adam Gaudette, man, for all the whiffs that Amadio, Cousins, and Perron has, they haven't been great so far to start this year. The Adam Gaudette one basically makes up for it. It's so funny, man. It is so funny. This guy has 11 goals. And he scored last game too, right?
Yeah. He's already, again, coming up with a game winner in, late November when the team really needed it. I think is more than enough. It's already exceeded my expectations for him coming into this season. 11 goals is more than I thought he would have in an 82-game stretch. I didn't really think he was going to feature in 82 games anyways. Pretty crazy stuff for Adam Gaudette. We're going to transition now just into we're going to do a little focus on one particular Sens player tonight that really stood out to me. Before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to LaRouche and the Game Over Network. If you didn't know, the Game Over Network is now an independent production focused on community inclusion and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode and all of our episodes, you'll find a link to our Patreon page, and we're also working on a page through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. So if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see as giveaways from these crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, or our Discord server. Damian, one player that stood out to me big time tonight, and it's not just because he scored his first NHL goal, although I think it's a nice little icing on the cake. Tyler Kleven, I thought, had a really strong game tonight. There was a big hit he laid on Fabian Zetterlund in the second period. He was physical all night. He's playing a bit more now with the injury to Artem Zub, and he's probably going to continue to be a bit more of a prominent figure on this Sens blue line. What were your impressions of Tyler Kleven tonight? Good for him, like I said, to get the goal, but he's been a bit shaky lately. I think he's had a few individual errors in the last couple of games, but this seems like a really good game for him to build off of, and just the type of game where he shows sort of his potential really to be an impactful NHLer.
Yeah, Kleven is still just he has come a long way, man. He really has.
Yeah.
Because you go back, I've said this before on a couple of shows so far, I feel like this year, but like remember when he got drafted, people literally had him as do not draft because this guy was incapable of playing with the puck, according to reports.
Admission, in the second period, I searched up on Twitter the three names, Kleven, Niemela, and Hirvonen, because I wanted to see when the last time that was a big discussion point. For those that don't know, the Senators traded up for the draft spot to select Tyler Kleven. They made a deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs, gave the Maple Leafs 2 picks, which they used to select Topi Niemela and Roni Hirvonen. And at the time, the Senators were dumped on a lot for what was deemed to be a really terrible move. But you look on, a couple years down the road now, Tyler Kleven is making an impact in the NHL. And I did look up the other two. They're both playing for the Toronto Marlies currently and are putting out middling results, but it's good showing for Tyler Kleven tonight.
Yeah, so this guy, like, I think he still has. There's more there too. I like the offense is never going to be stellar, and I don't know how he's going to fit into this team going forward, and I don't know how long he's going to be a Senator, of course. But like, okay, you start off, he's a good skater. He's a good skater for the most part. I think he got burned once bad against Vegas. But he's a good skater for his size, and he's 6'4". He's physical, and is kind of like your perfect third pair lefty, especially since on your left side you're really mobile with Sanderson and Chabot. And with Kleven, this guy has played 30 games in the league at this point. I'm just checking right now. 40 games, and honestly, man, for his age and his reputation, he doesn't make a ton of huge mistakes. I get that he's not playing in the top 4, but all things considered, like, he's still a really young defenseman. This guy is not even 23 years of age yet, and with defensemen, you need reps in the NHL. Like, you even see with JBD, like, he seems pretty established now. It took him a while for, like, fans to actually really get comfortable with him. And I think maybe it's the Jake Sanderson effect, where people just think that a Sens defenseman is always going to come in and just be really good right away. But yeah, man, Kleven, like, that's his first goal. If we want to talk about that, that's also going to give him a lot of confidence, because even though he's supposed to be a defensive defenseman, now he can sort of, it's not like he was restricting himself from shooting the puck, but he's just going to feel better about his game overall, and not have to worry about. Like, maybe not long term, but for at least the next 5-10 games, not have to worry about what his coach might think of him and stuff. Because at being a younger defenseman, you have to be in your head way more than a veteran defenseman would be. So a big goal for him, and took a little while, of course, I guess, but he's a defensive defenseman playing third pair minutes, so.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, again, like I said, it's a good thing for him to build off of. His ceiling and what that is really, I think, is still up for debate. I think he's definitely at worst a third pairing NHL defenseman, sort of what he is now at worst, because I think with his size and sort of just his physical profile, I don't think he'll have a shortage of suitors throughout his NHL career. I think he'll even say theoretically, if he were to fizzle out with the Senators within a couple of years, somebody else is going to give him a shot just because of his, just because of his build. He's a big guy. Teams really value these types of players. But if I were him, I'd be watching a lot of the game tapes on Alex Vlasic in Chicago, young big defenseman who wasn't a high scorer but has now worked his way in and is getting power play time with the Blackhawks and has worked his way into the top four there and earned a big contract. I'd be watching, veterans like Braden McNabb in Vegas, bigger defensemen who have really, elevated their play from third pairing into top 4 minutes and become impactful NHLers. These are the types of guys I think Tyler Kleven's going to have to continue to sort of study. And it looks like, I think this coaching staff's doing a number of good things for a lot of players. I think, the impact of this coaching staff overall, just because of the way the Senators have played, except for tonight, their shot rates and stuff like that have been really good this year. I think, you've seen a number of offensive players making better, scoring more. You see a number of the Senators forwards now defending a lot better. The impact of this coaching staff, I think, is all over this team right now, despite the fact that they're still showing a bit of inconsistency. And I think it's really there with Tyler Kleven. Despite the fact that he's made some mistakes in the past couple of weeks, he still has that bit of confidence, that bit of swagger, which I think is really impressive to see. And obviously things like that hit on Zetterlund, and he had a couple more times where he threw around the body tonight. It's exactly what you want to see from a player like that. And he's the type of player that the more he does that, I think the more fans he's going to get in Ottawa. So really, really good to see from Tyler Kleven. Any last thoughts on the big defenseman from tonight and just this season overall?
Well, yeah, too. And I think I have a little bit more to say than you right now because I'm on the West Coast and I'm not like dead tired like you are. But so one thing is playing him with Jensen actually I think is quite good for this team. With the Zub injury, you're kind of forced to roll 3 pairs, right? And I actually don't mind that because it gets 1 through 6 heavy in the game and you're not going in cold. And the thing about Jensen is that yes, he's not going to be the guy who's going to put up 50 points a season, but he can make the first pass and skate the puck out. Kleven, he's fine at it for his size and his age, but you don't want to rely him on doing that. In the past with Hamonic, that's not working. That's not working. You're Hamonic is going to shoot the puck off the boards and that's out. You can't rely on Kleven to skate the puck out every single shift. The other one is this team getting 2 games in a row with first goals in the NHL with Reinhart last game and then Kleven in this game. This team needed those so bad because you could look at it's just one thing Stützle, Kachuk, Giroux scoring, right? Those guys are going to do it. But when they're not coming out with wins, they need unique sort of victories in a way. Those little things that bring this team up because they get down really easy. Even when they're tied and they might not be scoring and a goalie's playing really well, they'll be slamming the boards and stuff. And it's not a shot against them, but it's just a lot of this team runs hot. Giroux, Stützle, Kachuk, even Norris at times. So a goal like that from Kleven, the defensive defenseman, those are things you kind of hold on to and you can push through and have some hope for your team. Now, the next guy up where you got to go Stapchuk a goal. So it's a nice thing to have sort of of course they called up Reinhart and Ostapchuk in the bottom 6 too. And I think that's brought the team up a little bit. They seem a little bit more energetic and they're playing more with purpose. And in the losing streak, they were just kind of rolling with the same lines, right? And it's a good thing to mix it up once in a while. So yeah, that's really all I have to say for that part. It's very good, and it's awesome to see it all around, to see your first goal. But 2 games in a row, that's awesome, and especially at this point of the season.
Yeah, and before we move on, I think that's a good thing you touched on, that, it sort of just it's a little thing that you just sort of gives the team a bit of a lift, I think, like that. You could see the Senators posted a video too, how excited all the players were to see him score that first NHL goal. Brady Tkachuk looked so fired up. and Giroux went over to him right away. It's really good stuff to see. And, particularly like you said earlier, when Adam Gaudette's been your most effective depth scorer and you really haven't gotten much offense from the likes of Amadio, and you're not getting much from Gregor or Cousins. Shane Pinto's been really disappointing in terms of his scoring. Probably has something to probably factored in because of the guys around him aren't doing much or putting away many chances. But you need guys like Kleven to just step up with the odd goal. So that was really good thing to see tonight, and a nice story there, and a night Tyler Kleven won't soon forget. We're going to transition into our sort of last segment here. Before we do that, I just want to let you all know that Game Over has you covered after the game, but in order to get ready to watch the Sens, you've got to get your game on too. Game On Ottawa is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Ottawa Senators. Our Game On is hosted by Michael Czar, and you can get all your Sens news in under 10 minutes Monday through Friday on the Game Over Ottawa YouTube channel and in podcast form, which you can find on the GameOverNetwork.com/pages/Ottawa. Make sure to check that out. Damian, I wanted to park a little bit of time to talk about one of the big rumors in Sens land this week. Sort of rumblings of this really started before the victory against Calgary on Monday, but they've sort of persisted throughout this week. Obviously, with the recent losing streak, there have been some rumored changes and things in Ottawa, rumors that the Sens are looking to shake things up, and I don't think that's surprising to maybe you or I or anybody that really closely follows this team. It sort of seems like if this season were to really fail, that's sort of the direction that the Senators would logically head into, to look to change things up, really change things up. I think Steve Staios is definitely started to put his mark on the team this offseason with some of his acquisitions. While all of them haven't panned out yet, I think you can definitely notice a bit of a stylistic change, at least with the way the Senators are playing. They're a lot more defensively sound. Analytically, they're still pretty strong. Stronger than they have been in previous years, and just quite frankly, the results really aren't showing that yet. But with the losses of late, one rumor came out, and it was reported from Frank Saravalli that the Senators are actively looking to move center Josh Norris. Personally, big fan of the player. I've got a Josh Norris jersey. He scored tonight. He obviously, look, we've talked a lot about Josh Norris across all these shows this year. Everybody knows what's the situation is. He's a player coming off of a lot of, bad luck with injuries. Everybody knew how crucial this year coming into it was for him. And I'd say so far, he's played to expectation and exceeded expectation in a lot of way. I think he's been really strong. But nonetheless, Frank Saravalli came out with his trade board today, his first one of the season, which feels crazy that we're already there. The people are starting to talk deadline, even though that's 3-4 months down the road. But Josh Norris is ranked number 9 on his list. Damian, let's say things continue. Are you surprised to hear Josh Norris being the one that's sort of being singled out of the Senators' core?
No, because you're not trading Stützle, you're not trading Sanderson, because you just lock those guys up, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Staios comes in and does that, oh my God, he has balls. But he's not going to do that. Kachuk, same sort of thing, same category. You're trading the captain, and he's only 25 years of age. I don't think you're doing that. So then you look at tier 2. You look at Chabot. You look at Batherson and Norris, and I guess you could throw in Giroux there, but he's older, right? So right. I would say Chabot, Norris, Batherson. You trade if the Sens fail this year, and I mean really fail, we'll see how the season goes. But if we determine this season as a failure, I think you have to trade one of the 3. Norris, that is a tough one because he's going to be 26 in May, and it's just, I don't know if we've seen enough, right? like enough of his career because this guy's been injured for so long. It's great that he hasn't like he's been healthy. Um, Knock on wood too. I just moved my camera from that, but it's great to see him like in the lineup this year, and he is a very valuable player. This guy is your prototypical number two center who is good in both ends, and he can score and he can kill penalties, and he's a great shooter, right? So, a really ideal second line center. If you look at like Shabbat, might be a little bit tougher to trade him because of the $8 million price tag, and he's not exactly worth $8 million. Batherson would be the easy one, I think, because of the contract. But if you trade him, you got to fill him in with like a right winger or something like that, because you don't know if Giroux's coming back, and then all of a sudden you're looking at what like Mike Amadio to play in the top six. Another thing is Shane Pinto. Is he ready to jump at the top six? As of right now, not yet. So if you're Steve Staios, you have to let this play out. Like, I don't think you look at it right now and make the trade. Even just take till the end of the season. This guy has 5 years left to $8 million on the contract. You have time if you want to trade Josh Norris. If you are really going to look at that, Staios has to take his time with this. Push it past the deadline if you have to. You can't trade a super valuable piece like that in the middle of the season unless it's something you just absolutely can't refuse. That's all that I'll say about this, because Josh Norris is one of my favorite players, and also the injuries concerns is another thing that's going to make it harder to trade him.
Yeah, can I give a theory on this, and you can tell me if you think I'm way off. I think the logic of the Senators trading a core player, I think that tracks. I think we've established that it makes sense that they would do that if this season really went off a cliff like it looked like it was going to on the weekend. I think that logic tracks. I think they would do that if they missed the playoffs again this year, or at least missed badly. I think somebody like Frank Saravalli, and I'm not trying to discredit in any way either his information or whoever else might be reporting on this. I saw, Marco D'Amico, who works out of Montreal, was another one reporting that the Senators were looking to give the organization a bit of a jolt. My theory on this is that for all the reasons you said before, I think Frank Saravalli and just other people are just selecting the easiest guy out of the core, theoretically, the guy that sort of maybe doesn't fit in with the rest of them. That being Josh Norris, because he's not on a cheap contract like a Batherson, and he's not as high end as a Stützle, Tkachuk, or a Sanderson, and maybe a bit more movable just because of his age than Shabbat. So I think, quite frankly, everybody knows the Senators might trade a core piece if things really fall flat, and quite frankly, he's just being made the poster boy for that reason. That's my theory on it, because again, with his injury history, I can't see there being that much interest in him right now, not yet. I think the Senators have to be really happy with his play so far, and I again, to give compliments to the coaching staff, I've really liked what they've done with him this year, going back to using him in a lot of defensive situations. He's been very strong on the draw this year, which is awesome considering the history with his shoulder. His analytics haven't come all the way back. He's still not exactly play driving in his spot, but he's been solid. He's up to 15 points in 23 games now, which, is a fine pace. He's still tracking for over 30 goals this year, which would be fantastic. I think anything over 25 for him, considering, all that he's been through, I think is what anybody could have wished for coming into this year. And, he's been defensively, he's been fine, which I think is just what you need. You need him to grow back into that role and grow back into those expectations that we had for him after his 35-goal year a couple seasons back. So, again, you're right. They got to take their time with this. And I don't think a Josh Norris trade is imminent because, if the Sens continue to put up some wins here like that, I think that discussion's going to go away, quite frankly. Plus, if you have a defensively sound 2C that is tracking, pretty good offensive numbers, I certainly wouldn't be in a rush to trade that player. Although, again, I get the sentiment that if the Senators fall flat this year, they need to trade a core piece. I get it, and I probably agree with it. But based on his play this year, he I wouldn't be rushing to get rid of the guy because I think he's done a good job since coming back, and it's good to see him, engaged out there. He doesn't look timid. He's making physical plays. Like I said, he's been great on the draw. So, um, you know, in my opinion, it seems like just a bit of a smokescreen, the Josh Norris trade rumors, but at the same time, I'm also hoping they're not true because like you, big fan of the player. Any last thoughts on Josh Norris so far this year?
It's just, yeah, I think you got to take your time with them. Like I want to see, and it's hard that we're having these discussions right now. But like you said, the Sens got to win games to put this narrative away. It's up to them. There's really no excuses. You go out and you win the games no matter what. I don't care if it's 7-0, or if it's 4-3 in overtime, or if it's a 4-3 win against the Sharks. Get the 2 damn points. Do it. Because you got to find ways to win. We are what, 12, 13 and no, sorry, 11, 12 and 1 right now as our record. No, we're 10, 11 and 1. Sorry, that's what it is. Yeah. So like there's still a long way to go. I'm not even looking at the standings. If I'm like I don't care. I don't even know who's in the Eastern Conference right now in the race. I assume it's most of the same teams that have been. But this core, this is their last chance. Like for those, I guess you look at Chabot, Sanderson, and then probably the 4 guys up front. So they're Kachuk, Stutzla, Batherson, Norris. Those 6 guys, one of them is going to have to go if they do not make the playoffs, because this team should make the playoffs or at least be like 3 points out. Regardless, I think they need to make it to ensure that there's confidence in this group going forward. And if not, then you got to trade one of them, but that's what you have the off season for. And that's a completely different discussion that we can leave and push it down the road. Because if you trade a second line center, all of a sudden you need a second line center again. And I don't know if Shane Pinto's that. You right? Like yeah. He could be, but we don't know yet. And trading Josh Norris with 5 years left on his contract, you got to make a calculated approach with these types of players because he is just getting his career started. And I like, not only is he a good scorer, but it's just the other parts of the game that he's really good at. Face-offs, he's 56% of the draw this year, and he's good. He kills penalties, and he also like can just bury pucks. Like he hasn't had a season where he's had a bad shooting percentage. Right now, he's at like 19%, but he's been at that rate for his entire career. He's such an interesting player because you don't see many centers that are like goal scorers like him. It's not like he has a massive shot or anything. He just finds a way to sneak it in somehow.
He gets in good positions, I think, is his really good vice, right? He's always seems to be in a good spot sort of in that net front area.
Yeah, and he cares. Like I want to see, man, this is the last thing I'll say. I just want to see Josh Norris like score an overtime winner in the playoffs. Like a one-timer, top cheese, pops the water bottle, crowd goes crazy, right? I just want to see that. I want to see this core be a part of the future. But if they don't succeed, then you have to cut the ties because it has been way too long since we made the playoffs.
All good points, Damien. Looks like we're going to skip our overtime segment tonight, folks, because it's past 2 a.m. Eastern now, and like me, I'm sure a lot of you are tired out there and probably watching this the next morning. Thanks to David W. in the chat for sticking around with a couple of comments. David said the Sens didn't defend well tonight, but Ullmark bailed them out big time. Absolutely. Only reason we didn't touch on Ullmark too much is because, quite frankly, we've talked a lot about Ullmark in these episodes so far this year, but definitely deserves a lot of credit for the victory tonight. Before we let you go, I just want to let you guys know about Game Over's merch, because what better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs, so whether you feel like the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, or you want to make a statement with our established design, which is currently on sale, or you want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our Live and Die by the Goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through the winter, I could certainly use a coffee right now. We have you covered. designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code at the beginning of the stream and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sport media Canada while repping the Game Over community. Damian, thanks for hopping on with me. It's a bit earlier for you than it is me, but always nice to talk about a Sens win, no matter how unpretty they are. And if I stand, unless I'm corrected here, you're on for the next game against LA as well this weekend.
I am, yes. Alex Adams will be joining. Well, me. It would be me. Not us, I guess. But yeah, he's going to be joining right after the game. It's one of the rare games where he will not be covering them post game because they are on the road. So, of course, Alex has been a very great member of the Sens community. I remember following him just like a couple of years ago, and he was, like just sort of a fan at that point. And now all of a sudden he's working for Sportsnet as a reporter. So he should be a great guest, and he is an even better guy as well. So looking forward to that.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Definitely make sure, folks, if you're listening to this and you're going to be available Saturday night, make sure to tune in to listen to Damian with Alex Adams from Sportsnet after the Senators and Kings. That's going to do it all for tonight on the November 27th/28th edition of Game Over Ottawa. The Senators pick up a big 2 points. Wasn't pretty, but they did it, and probably make up for that Philadelphia game a couple of weeks ago with a 4-3 win over the San Jose Sharks. Shout out Adam Gaudette. Huge goal, and the Senators take it. I've been Nick, joined by Damian. Thank you for tuning into Game Over Ottawa, and we will catch you back Saturday. Have a good night, folks. Take it easy. Take care.